We just know that right now, given the fact that there's a suggestion, there are a lot of online, apparently very specific threats against very specific agents at the FBI and whatnot. It would be great for everybody to tamp down the rhetoric against the FBI, because the FBI simply was doing what the DOJ asked them to do. The Attorney General is the boss of the guy at the FBI, of all the people at the FBI. So, with all of these threats going around, it would ultimately be great if the former president, who has always been a great supporter of law enforcement, had posed with 1,000 police departments coast to coast. It would be great if he called for an end to the violent rhetoric against federal law enforcement, and in particular, the FBI that was just doing their job.
But as Trey Gowdy pointed out last night, for you to look at this situation and think that Democrats and Republicans have been treated the same over the last few years, you'd have to be looking at a different situation.
Yeah.
I mean, leg irons for
Greg
Navarro.
Gutfeld talked about that, too. He said, it's interesting that the Democrats or progressives are now worried about protecting law enforcement when they weren't, years ago during the raids. But no one is for the violence of FBI agents or any of these individuals that are in law enforcement.
Right. If you want to personify that search, look at the Attorney General of the United States. Merrick Garland is the one who has staked his entire reputation on it. If there's not something really big there, he's done.
Man, what a sad state of affairs that Fox and Friends has to take it upon itself to reach out to the former president of the United States to let him know that maybe he shouldn't keep inciting attacks on our own country's law enforcement agencies. Like, if you want a snapshot of what a shit show the GOP, the party of Lincoln, as they love to remind us, has become, it's a morning talk show anchor having to tell the leader of a political party, hey, maybe don't inspire terror attacks against the US government. Yep, Lincoln would be proud. I also love how Steve Doocy says about Merrick Garland, quote, if there's not something really big there, he's done. Like, haven't these Republicans learned to stop offering caveats about the instances where it would be okay to take action against Trump? Because I'm not sure if they've been awake for the last few years, but whatever the most corrupt action that Trump could have taken is exactly what he did. Here's an example. Here's Dana Perino opining how the only way the search of Mar-a-Lago would have been necessary is if there was nuclear documents, and, well, you can see where this is going.
Short of the nuclear codes being written on these documents in a locked behind closed doors, I just really don't understand how a document could warrant this kind of warrant. The Washington Post reporting that the feds were looking for classified nuclear documents during their search of former President Trump's Florida home on Monday.
So again, Republicans, here's a free tip. Stop offering up reasons when action against Donald Trump would be justified, because I promise you that whatever you say will ultimately pan out and probably be worse. Or keep doing it. I love watching these people eat their words every 12 hours. You gotta love too how Steve Doocy has to couch his request to Trump with little compliments sprinkled in. He says this.
It would ultimately be great if the former president, who has always been a great supporter of law enforcement, had posed with 1,000 police departments coast to coast. It would be great if he called for an end to the violent rhetoric against federal law enforcement.
That he was always a great supporter of law enforcement. Like, I'm sorry, but maybe, just maybe, we put that talking point to rest, considering the guy staged an insurrection at the US Capitol and sicked a mob of his supporters against law enforcement. And now you've got Capitol police officers quite literally committing suicide because of the events of January 6th, and yet strangely, the law enforcement appreciator himself, Donald Trump, never managed to say a single word about it. Maybe when your legacy is sending thousands of people to invade the US Capitol, you might not be a law and order guy after all. Just, for starters. And by the way, Steve Doocy isn't the only Fox host signaling what a liability Trump actually is. Just today, Fox's Laura Ingraham went on a podcast and said, quote, people conflate Trump with people's overall sense of happiness in the country. Donald Trump's been a friend of mine for 25 years, and I'm always very open about this on my show. But, we'll see whether that's what the country wants. The country, I think, is so exhausted. They're exhausted by the battle, the constant battle, that they may believe that, well, maybe it's time to turn the page if we can get someone who has all of Trump's policies who's not Trump. Which, by the way, is not some victory for Democrats either, to have someone with the same policies as Trump, but who lacks all the stupidity that kept landing him in trouble. But it is telling that these people are more and more openly willing to defy or call out or question someone whose entire MO has been absolute total loyalty. Meaning Trump's weakness is evident, and for a guy whose whole shtick is pretending how strong he is, that doesn't exactly bode well for him. In the meantime, here's to hoping that Steve Doocy can convince the former president not to incite any more terror attacks, and here's to hoping that the US never again elevates a man so unhinged that he'd incite terror attacks in the first place. Before you go, couple things. First, if you want to support my work, the best way is to subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. And second, if you want to see and hear more from me, check out my website, briantylercohen.com. That way you can get links to my podcast, merchandise, ways to donate to voting rights organizations, and so much more. The thumbnail is also right here on the screen, so go check it out. And as always, thank you so much for watching.